In this video, we're going to take a look at the overtaking rules in Formula One this year, where they currently are, what's changing, what it means for racing, and some of the limitations of the current first ahead at the apex rule. We're going to take a look at a couple of examples. I don't really like the direction that it's going. I think we need to get to a more holistic, overarching view and just take a sensible, pragmatic approach to each situation. If you're interested in this video and what my thoughts are, definitely keep watching. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Obviously, after all of the dramas that happened in COTA down at turn 12, Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, in addition to all of the drama and chaos that happened at turn 4 and turn 7 in Mexico, we have ourselves a bit of a conundrum in the F1 world in terms of who's ahead at the apex and what does it all mean, and what are how can the stewards interpret the rules and what is an apex and so on. I think Andrew Benson pens a good article for BBC Sport, so let's have a look at that article together, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on it, and we're going to talk about the limitations of the new ruling that's coming in shortly. Alrighty guys, hopefully you can see that on the screen in front of you. It says here, FIA to revise the guidelines after the drivers' meeting. So this is the drivers' meeting that went on in Mexico on the Thursday or Friday, where everyone met and they wanted to discuss the rule and what's happening. And here you can see a photo of Lando and Max, who got the 5-second penalty, overtaking off track. So here we go. We're just going to run through it together. I'm just going to set the table and then I'll give you my opinion on it all. So it says Formula One's governing body is set to revise its racing guidelines following a meeting with the drivers. The move comes after the drivers questioned the decision to penalize McLaren's Lando Norris following controversial incident at the United States Grand Prix. The FIA said in the drivers briefing, the sources, blah, 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 would come up with a revised wording to cover the specifics of the incident and then present it back at Qatar. So we could be looking at a new ruling here in Qatar next month. The FIA did not give details as to what would change, but the admission came in the context of a discussion about the tactics Verstappen had employed to keep his position and whether he should have been penalized. So the current rules dictate that a driver trying to overtake on the outside needs to only be afforded room exiting the corner if the front axle of the car is ahead of that of the inside car at the apex. That, guys, is a very, very, very strange piece of wording, because we're talking about here, the current rules dictate that a driver trying to overtake. So again, there's dramas there, right? Who is the overtaking driver? McLaren raised an interesting point about this, that Lando did get in front, and then was he the defending or overtaking? So that's dramas. On the outside, that's dramas as well, because you could be on the outside going in, but then partway through the corner, you take the inside because it's a section of S's or whatever. So that's going to be a challenge moving forward. Only afforded room exiting the corner. Well, again, we need to clarify that because some corner exits feed into entries and there's overlap between corner exit and corner entry. Front axle is an interesting one. That is not the front wing. That is not the front tires. We've seen cases where one car is just ahead of the other when we look at the front wing. Front axle is a totally different part of the car, but that's more as it relates to suspension and tires. That is not front wing. Very different part of the car. It's slightly further back. Ahead. Define ahead. Is it front axle to front axle or front axle to front wing, or, define ahead. Ahead of that of the inside car at the apex. Again, apex is a very loosely defined term as well. Is apex a point? Is it a region? What if it changes? What if someone's ahead during the first parts of the apex and then falls behind at the second part of the apex? Look, guys, I don't have all of the answers here, but I'm just pressing up against the areas where I think there are going to be inconsistencies with this rule moving forward. Anyway, the next crucial part says, many drivers feel that the rule needs to be changed to add a caveat that if the driver defending his position also ends up going off track, he should face some form of penalty. Then you're going to have racing off track, aren't you? You're going to have Lando Norris going around the outside like we saw in COTA off the track, and just because Max went off track slightly, then that's fine. So we're going to end up with racing off track here. The other point I wanted to make, guys, was that perspective from the camera angles and the onboards can very easily show that one car is ahead at the apex and another car from another perspective, is ahead at the apex as well. So that's why I don't think the ahead at the apex should be the holy grail gospel of who's entitled to what. It should be in there, but in amongst other things as well. It should be a consideration amongst other considerations. I'll bring up a few pictures now that show you in one of the shots from the external shot, just looking at turn 3 here in Austria. Lando's sufficiently alongside in the inside, but if you were to kind of draw a line, and again, it depends at which line you draw and what angle you draw and where you consider your apex, but you could argue that Max is ahead at one point. But if you switch over to another camera angle, you'll see that it clearly looks like Lando is ahead and to the apex first as well. For the avoidance of doubt, this is a successful overtake by Lando Norris on Max Verstappen. You're up the inside, you're controlling and managing the corner. The person Max on the outside has left you space. You've overtaken, you're first at the apex. Like, it's tick, 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 tick. Max keeps the place off the track in this position on lap 63 in Austria. I believe he owes him that place back, and I was disappointed to see Lando not be patient there and just let that come to him. He didn't give enough time. They crashed a lap later. Another example why I don't think you can use the first at the apex as the holy grail is Liam Lawson and Sergio Perez turn 4 and 5 as well. Going into turn 4, you've got Liam ahead, but Sergio on the inside. And like I said, I consider the inside more valuable. And Liam can't turn in there until Sergio's turned in, because Sergio's on the inside controlling the corner. So Liam's first to the apex, but I feel like Sergio's in more control of that corner, and he's dived up the inside, which is where the space was, and avoided contact. But then going around the next corner, you've got a totally different situation where Liam is on the inside and Sergio is on the outside, but he's slightly ahead. So I don't see that again, I'm trying to show you guys that the rules don't stack in this situation. Again, Liam's at full lock just trying to get around this corner. It's naturally meant that Sergio has no choice but to go off track. So I still feel like we need to look at the rules in the context of who is on the inside and who is entitled to space, and have an overarching rule that you cannot defend or overtake off track regardless of anything that happens. So my personal view is where we need to get to with the rules is to tick 2 main boxes. Number 1, we need to work out who is entitled to space. And that depends on a variety of factors. We don't need to just look at who's ahead at the apex, or we don't need to just look at who goes off track, or we don't need to just look at these things. We need to work out who is entitled to space, right? And that then forms and there's a variety of things that feed into that, okay? So number 1, it's who is on the inside. I feel like that's the most important thing. That's where you can control and manage the corner from the inside going into the corner. So who is on the inside? Who is ahead at the apex is important as well. That should definitely count for something. The speed that the drivers are taking coming into the corner. We saw turn 7 in Mexico, Max was on the inside and ahead at the apex, but he just carried too much speed into the corner and then went off the track himself. So the speed going into the corner obviously is something that we need to consider. And the fourth and final thing, which is very important for me, is where is the apex defined? From which point is it being looked at and measured? Is it a single point or is it a region? You guys have got to think about some of the long corners, or think about wet weather conditions as well when you're implementing a rule like this. Think about China turn 1, that massively long turn 1. Where is the apex there? Is it where the driver chooses to do their rotation, or is it actually a point on the corner on the track? Again, I have my own definition and understanding what apex is, but I'm pressing up against the inconsistencies here. This would have to be defined and penned out for this rule to have some sort of weighting and hold any sort of water and value moving forward. I think we need to get to who is entitled to space and who is sufficiently alongside and who is in control of the corner. That's all we really want to see. That's the first point I want to raise, as in who is entitled to that space. The second point I want to raise is we need to get to a point in the rules that would reflect what would happen if it was a hard boundary. Hard boundary being a wall, grass, or gravel, some sort of deterrent there. The rules also need to reflect what would happen in that situation. By making an amendment to the rules that we're going to have here that says many drivers feel that the rule needs to be changed to add a caveat that the driver defending ends up going off track, he should face some sort of penalty. Well, that means that Max goes off track, Lando goes off track, Max gets a penalty for going off track and Lando gets a penalty for going off track. And then it's just penalties, and racing off track. We want to reward the driver who can keep it within the track limits in that case. And we always want to have a position where you can't overtake off track and you can't defend off track. And they should be blanket rules. Like there should never be a situation in which you can defend or overtake off track just depending on what the other car's done. I think there's too much reliance on other cars there. And like I said, we're going to see overtaking off track, which is not a good direction that we want to go down. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, I agree with the apex rule. I just think it should be looked at in conjunction with the other ones. That is, who is on the inside, how much speed are they carrying in, where is the apex, and so on. And it should just be looked at a corner by corner, case by case basis. And a judgment call just needs to be made looking at the situation in that context, who should be afforded space and who has the rights in that type of situation. Let's talk about Franco Colapinto's crash, because I got a few questions in my previous video, like what did I think of the 10 seconds? What did I think of the 2 penalty points that Franco got as well? I'll say it in Spanish and then I'll give you a summary in English as well after. Hola a todos. Mucha gente me preguntan qué pienso sobre el accidente del Liam Lawson y Franco Colapinto en curva 1 en México, si estoy de acuerdo de los 10 segundos de la pena y también los 2 puntos de la pena de la licencia también. Mira, para mí necesitamos ver quién tiene derechos en la curva. Entonces, derechos es como necesitan ver unas cosas para ver quién tiene derechos. Uno es que quién tiene el adentro es lo más importante para mí. Adentro. Franco necesita pelear por el adentro. En este caso, Liam tiene el adentro, entonces tiene más derechos. Liam también era la primera persona entrando la curva primeramente en la curva era Liam también, el segundo punto. Y el tercer punto era que Franco salía de la pista en la curva 1 también. Entonces no puedes hacer eso y continuar pelear de la posición. Entonces, si yo era el enseñador de Franco, pues podría decir que es muy difícil pelear por la posición desde afuera, entrando la curva afuera. No me gusta esta posición. Me gusta pelear por el adentro, en serio. Siempre estoy diciendo a mis pilotos que necesitan pelear por el adentro. Es lo más importante. Y si estás afuera, tienes que esperar y tiene paciencia y como relajar un poquito y ver otras opciones e intentar una otra vez o algo así. Entonces, con la pena de 10 segundos, estoy de acuerdo en eso. Por los dos puntos de la licencia, no. Esta era demasiado duro. No es necesario como Franco en su 4 carrera o algo así. No es necesario. Franco está aprendiendo. Franco está buscando. Franco están acostumbrado a Fórmula 1, no es necesario. Pero mis consejos a Franco, no importa eso, en serio. No hay puntos si tiene 10 segundos penalidad, no hay puntos si es no hay puntos en cualquier manera, entonces a mí no importa, no vale la energía. Entonces, mis consejos a Franco podría ser... necesita hacer una mejor calificación, lo siento, una mejor calificación, así que Franco está afuera de todos los coches en la carrera, tiene más espacio, puede correr la carrera más libre, más tranquilamente, sin peleando mucho, esas cosas. Entonces necesita focus más en calificación y en la práctica 3 no creo que era la buena cosa practicar con neumáticos medianos. ¿Por qué? Neumáticos medianos no se sirve. Necesita practicar con neumáticos blandos, hacer una buena calificación y compartir y pelear por puntos en la carrera. Esto es lo que estoy buscando. Entonces, en la próxima carrera en Brasil, me gustaría ver si Franco tiene una buena, más bien una mejor calificación, que es muy importante. Como que si quieres pelear por puntos, necesitas hacer eso. Y eso es donde, este es donde me gustaría ver la energía y el focus y el práctica y todo eso. Necesito ser honesto. Claro que soy un fan de Franco, pero necesito ser honesto. Por eso es importante tener muchos enseñadores, 1, 2, 3, o como yo, por ejemplo, me gustaría ayudar a Franco, pero en este momento no estamos hablando, no estamos en contacto. Es una lástima, pero así es. Y me voy a mandar los consejos a ustedes en YouTube, y si me encuentra, bueno, me alegra. Si puedes compartir esta sección del vídeo con amigos, compartir con tus social media, mándame una pregunta o comenta debajo también, y suscríbete a este canal también. Gracias. So just a quick summary with what I said there was with the Liam Lawson, Franco Colapinto one, I think Liam was on the inside. Liam was first to the apex. Franco left the circuit. You know, these are not good things. And what I would say to Franco is you should be competing for the inside, else just relax and chill out and find another way. Like, don't go off the track and fight it from that position. It's silly. It shows inexperience. And that's some of the reasons why he could use someone like me to directionally place him in the right way. It's also a result of not qualifying very well as well. Like, this is what happens when you have a bad practice and a bad quali. You're fighting for P12. It's not where Franco should be. The car was good enough for P7, P8. He should have been in there competing for points. And I'd like to see Franco putting more effort there. Do I agree with the 10 seconds? Yes. Do I agree with the 2 penalty points? No. I think that was very harsh for someone of Franco's experience. I don't think it was necessary. And we could have let him off and afforded him some space and room to grow in the sport as well. And just try to remind him, say, hey, that was not right, but don't do it again, you know, that sort of thing. So I have to be honest. Obviously, I'm a fan of Franco. I would love to give him advice. I am giving him advice through this channel and through your support. But I have to be honest as well and put him back in line, keep him straight and narrow, give him the correct advice and the correct direction. It's not worth wasting energy on this. Let's move forward and go for some points in Brazil. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do leave me a question or comment in the comment section below. It helps the channel. Subscribe to this channel. I'll be giving a summary about Brazil on the Friday, the Saturday, and the Sunday, and give it a thumbs up as well. And if you did like it, please share it to a friend. All that helps the channel grow moving forward. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.